How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Let me
I got dragged into token engineering live, which is great. Really interesting things are happening. Um, with insights, uh, yeah, and progress. It's really, really cool. Like compared to how the space was a year ago, and now it's really fantastic improvement with respect to things that are available.
Yeah, like there's always new protocol coming up, new tool coming up. It's so exciting.
Can also be yeah, feel still a bit crazy, but really we're much better situated to make sense of it all. Or even just to say, okay, this part is the creative chaos now, let it settle. Don't have to obsess about every new development, but yeah, so many things. So, and today, actually, we wanted to have this super creative session on creative workflows, and Satori wanted to actually lead, right? Maybe we take a few moments to wait if they will come in.
And also, if we have time
Yeah.
longer, like I sketched a little bit more, and
Mm-hmm.
like this next week, I would like to really work on this funding proposal and like publish
Yeah.
so on. So yeah, we will like have
Perfect.
more clearer idea.
Mm. And with the proposal, you mean the working group, right?
Yeah, working on
The
funding
working group.
proposal.
Hmm. So I would like to, work with you on this. I don't know how we
Yes,
can
for
do it,
sure.
but I think because at least in my head, uh, the things that developed in the past weeks when we started actually looking at how are we organizing work, and also innovation, if you will, right? How are we making space for new people coming in and also new insights and so on? We didn't have that, for example, for TE ethics initiatives, and also with respect to what you shared, Matt, like the research foundations, right? Or research questions that can be foundations or sparks into new focus group for token engineering participatory action research or ethics. And the same thing like how Jean came in with this research topic or contribution, and now we're having a research um, forming around regenerative workflows, like how do you work in these spaces and so on. So I would love for us to describe the groundwork and the funding for it such that it covers the bases, like active participants, but also foresees or tells people who want to support our work, tell them that there will be ad hoc funding needs. For example, a research topic is forming, a research squad, if you will, of two or more people coming together, and we will need an additional 10K, 15K, what have you. Um, and I would like to call those call for participations or call for
Amazing.
participation or call for research or something like that. It would be great if we can work on it together.
Yeah, can I share my screen before Satori
Yes,
comes? Like,
please, please,
that
please.
is okay.
Okay. Hi, Manu.
Hi, Sebnem. Hi, everyone. Hi, Nicodemus.
So
Steph.
Oh,
Hello, Mike. Hey,
I
Manu.
mistook you for Satori for a moment because of your new avatar.
Yeah, you change change in avatar is always a big thing in Discord.
Oh, nice. Oh my god,
Like,
research
it's like a new,
groundwork.
it's like a new haircut. I got a new haircut.
Yeah, exactly.
can I ask like
I didn't
a
have.
little question? Uh,
Yes.
like I'm gonna be like putting this little flower on this conference thing. I was wondering if I just like make it not a expensive thing and it's like a really big edition if persons want to kind of like buy it. I was thinking like where do I connect the account address so it just arrives into the Consilience library? Because I can split the addresses in case it starts to sell. No, it
Does
would be the
anyone know these great updates, by the way, Steph? I don't know. I didn't have time to catch up on our chat at all. I just arrived here. I don't know
like
if you wrote about it.
yeah, I wrote about it. What happened is like applied for Alities. Alities is launching the first NFT platform on the Celo blockchain, which is like a mobile first
Mm-hmm.
blockchain. Kind of a
Mm-hmm.
large thing. Having a conference in Barcelona called Celo Connect, where there's like a lot of people going. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot, I think like 200 speakers, and in 2 days there's like a little lounge which has like an internal forest built. It's all about like ecological responsible stuff.
Yeah.
There it is gonna be like whereas Ghosh was kind of selected as like the first generation of like artists that are gonna be like presented on that new
Nice.
platform. And there will be like the flower of the Consilience library, this design that I made like a while
Love
ago.
it.
There it is gonna be the idea that if this thing sells, that it's like a part goes to kind of support Res Gauche and a part goes to the Consilience library. All that you need is a kind of
Beautiful.
Valora wallet with an address, so then from there it gets automatically sent there, which
Oh,
requires a
Mm-hmm.
mobile phone. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
want.
I,
So just an idea, but we can also catch up on that later. Number one, great, well done. And also Salo is quite interesting with respect to their work philosophy and so on. They take
Yeah, yeah.
holacracy to the next level.
And it's a really nice developers team, and yeah, it seems like
Hmm.
something new happening, and yeah, there's like a
Cool.
lot of people on this, so I guess it could be nice for the library to be presented there. I'll make sure to add some
Totally.
links to it and
Totally.
edit it.
And very quickly, but we can also if you want, you join when we describe this. The process of wallets and all that admin stuff of funding. But what I would quickly suggest is, and also because it's just diversity or diversification also, like if you are already part of that network and you're managing the wallet and so on and so forth, I would say you literally take stewardship of that funding inflow. And also you had mentioned that one of the contributions midterm would be this digital physical library location at Rescosh that you would like to host, kind of right where the people interact with. So I would say, whatever funding comes in, definitely make it flow into that. And you're the lead of those portions of the task, if you will, anyways. But we should definitely keep track of what is incoming, who is managing, and also if you want or if you need someone else to actually take care of wallets and what have you. Let's I'm noting this down, and that definitely worth and a needed working
Yeah,
session,
like
a document on its
kind of
own.
like just
Hmm?
technically speaking, because the conference is on the 4th and the 5th, and these days it's kind of uploading the material. So if there's one person of the core team that wants to install a Valora wallet and then send me the address, and when I'm onboarding the NFTs, then I'll just put a 50-50 split of whatever sells that goes directly to this Consilience wallet, and the
Hmm?
rest goes to the Res Gauche wallet. So then from the coding part,
Gotcha.
the person buying then also sees that this is like a direct form of funding both systems. It's kind of what I could
Okay.
use. And then it's also, at this iteration, they didn't do a resales and a secondary market yet. So royalties cannot be split, but they can be chosen. And file sizes are
Okay.
up to 100 megabytes. It seems quite nice, but I just need someone from the team that says, "Ah, yeah, I can put on my phone like a Valora wallet, and then send me like this kind of address of it, and then I'll do the rest for now."
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, maybe we can use the multisig, but I think with the Celo network
Mm,
multisig, like the Gnosis doesn't have UI, so you have to engage with their GitHub code, so it's not very user
yeah.
friendly at all. So yeah, like as Steph said, we some of us can give the vault address, like we're trusting each other, no worries at all.
Yeah,
Okay. We'll
in the
find
future,
someone.
yeah, in the
Yeah, like
future,
I can
anything
do it,
is
Anna
gonna
do it.
go like what the Kiko, like the developer from Kiko, she said like in the future they're gonna go into multisig and make a DAO. But just now for the conference, for the first time that like the first artists that are selected, like for me it was kind of really important to kind of code the NFTs that are kind of visibly split already in the kind
Yeah.
of sales. So it's just someone with a phone, which is not my phone because I cannot put two accounts. I cannot put
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
wallets
Yeah.
on one phone. Then it's
Gotcha.
I
just
see.
kind of
Yeah,
clear that it's kind of from you guys that you decide how it goes into the value flow, and then Res Gauche is also kind of
Gotcha.
supported.
yeah. If
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is okay, I can get in touch with Steph and like learn how to open this
Perfect.
telephone wallet and
Okay,
do it.
yeah, let's. If you
Okay,
have time today after, that would be really cool. That we just.
exactly. After call, I have time. Perfect.
Okay. Super nice. Thank you both. And
So
yeah, Mart basically is our key person. Just kidding, but that's all needs to be documented and so on. So your stream,
exactly.
Matt, very quickly, Satori is also here, so we can
Oh,
after that
okay.
move. But just show what you had, so we have it on
Like
our
very,
radar.
very quickly. So I
Hmm.
created little roadmap. So
Hmm.
discussion groups to sharpen research question, creation of bibliography, literature review, creation of empirical data table set, partnership effort with other organizations regarding this research work group because there's a lot of research DAOs that may be interested to fund this or
Hmm.
like
You're sharing a
work with
different
it.
screen right now. Just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Is anyone recording?
I don't know. Ah,
Oh, cool.
Amazing.
Just,
Thank
just to chime in that I have plans to make video edits of some of this stuff. I'm already kind of going through some of the stuff, the steps to do that.
cool. Looking forward. So, okay. Yeah, Matt, know something?
Hey, Steph, how's it going with the NFT stuff?
Yeah, it's going quite nice. I was just talking about it a bit. So if you have material that you want to add to the conference, just send it by mail, and then we'll send
Okay.
up a value flow that goes to the Consilience library and to Res Gauche. And or if you also make an account, then we can also add it.
Yeah, I did.
Mm.
I set up an account real quick when you send that link.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, then send me like the Valora wallet address. If you send me material, then I can add it to their team that they know
Okay.
that it's kind of going to you also.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Cool, cool. Okay, Matt, we have a problem with your stream, I think. For the sake of time, and we're taking time from our creative workflow session, I would rather say maybe you can share it. We don't hear you at all, by the way. I think we are losing Matt. But I would say let's continue with the actual. Um, hmm, yeah. Actual, what do you call it, gathering point for today, which is this creative workflow that Satori prepared for Omega coming from Imaginarium. Satori, would you like to give us, refresh everyone a little bit on what expect today us and how do we continue or go on that journey with you?
Yeah.
And yeah, a
You
little
know,
bit for warm
it
up.
was kind of funny earlier. Me and Jolly Llama were talking, and we were jiving more on the nuts and bolts of the dynamics of the creative grouping. And so for everybody, I actually posted this drawing of my first attempt to do a mandala on myself. And it's called the Galactic Butterfly Flowers and Bee Mandala. And then the tagline is "Together we are the Renaissance Mind." And so the dynamics of the image is there's a sun, a butterfly, a flower, a couple of bees, and then like a garden with a flower growing already with like the mycelial like network. And so like all of these like dynamics I think play into what I was talking about, the roles. And it's just a way, because like later on in the mandala you find out that you play all these different roles, but it's more about like how they fit relative to your situation. And that all of these pieces like fit together, and that the process of figuring that out for yourself is simultaneously that process that helps other people. Like when me and Jolly Llama were talking about, those are the real tokens. That token of the GIF of us first using the Figma board and it's alive. And I got all excited when what do you call it, Letty was playing around with my disembodied poetics, because like in the comments those are the cards of like this more clarity of when our two minds are mashing together. I was like, okay, that's what we need to bring out. Like that's the skeleton of what I'm talking about with the mandala. And even furthermore, I've been opening up like my peer-to-peer human connections, and I've been syncing up with this guy from Team Human, and what he's doing is so in line with what I'm thinking about with the mandala. And I showed a little bit of example of it, and he's doing this advanced mind mapping, and it goes with the mechanics that I'm talking about of like 1, 3, and 5. So 1 is you being centered. Like this is how you gain comfort in complexity, is the calmness within, and whatever that is for you. Like some of my own practice is like coloring and sometimes cooking to get my mind off of certain things, and whatever it is to balance yourself. But then the 3 poles are kind of like that transdisciplinary poles of like what are your disciplines, like what are you working towards, and whether you know them or not, and those are the time to explore them. But then the later portion where we're getting towards is the 5. Like how does these 5 work together? And me and Jolly Llama were kind of jiving on that about like this mentorship, about like I think the beginner's mind is so important in the group dynamics, because of like the last time we were together, the new people in the group were like, okay, what does that mean? Or like, oh, I don't know what that is. Or like, this onboarding doesn't make sense. Like all of that is like, okay, we need to like, that's like the basics. Like that's step 1. That's what we need to do the cards for. And we find how we fit in the roles for like our given interests. And then like how, like for me, I always go back to Curry, because we have this relationship. Like I always bounce everything by Curry, because like I know he's better at visuals than me, and I think too a part of our confidence that he knows that I'm better at edits than him. So like every time we engage, we know we're gonna get something of value, but that's to put like some kind of like quantifier on it. But it's really we like to play, and then every time we play, we're like, oh my god, I see that a lot better. And I talk a lot for me and Curry, and in one of the instances, I'm like, oh, I've been talking to like, how do you see it, Curry? And he's like, yeah. And he's really like, he's not that talkative because most of his poetics is in his visuals. And he's like, yeah, you really gave me some insight on that color theory. And that's all he says. And I'm just thinking, God damn it, Curry, you're like fucking like mind mapping the color theory, and you're like downplaying like what you're doing, and I'm just gonna see it in his visuals, and then like later it's gonna make sense to me. But that's just, you only get that over time, and what I'm saying is that we start to be more meaningful with this, and we could like start to like capture it in using these NFTs meaningfully, and stuff like that.
I have a question. I'm taking notes and it's super insightful. So how did you, like, our given interests, we start jamming, we know each other's, like first you know yours, right, where you are and so on, and then what skills you want to maybe today or in this situation you want to put forward and so on. But then knowing each other's skills, getting to see the complementary skills. How does that work? Like, was it a one-off, or could you say, oh, this was like, is there, can we engineer encounters?
Yeah, you know, this is what you've been challenging me recently. Like, well, no, first was like, how am I gonna prove stuff that I just naturally do? And I'm like, okay. And then I was like, I don't think we should engineer Imaginarium. And then later I'm like, oh, I think we can engineer Imaginarium. And I'm like, oh, do I really want to do that? And then I'm like, okay, yeah, I think we could do it in the playful way. That's what I mean by the cards. Like, the cards are the way that it's up to the person and their curiosity. Like, there's basics, like, you know, learning the steps to do. In my head, I transfer it into kitchen. Like, each of these are stations, and you gotta like be able to handle your station. But a part of it in the kitchen, you have someone who's an expert or could handle that station, teaches the person below them, and they shadow them. They have a mentorship, and then that's how you learn your station. But also too, when you learn that all of these stations like work in concert together. So, you know, even though I was a lot of times in the kitchen, the lowest one on the totem pole, but if I did my job right, I had free time to go and help somebody on their station, and the benefit of helping them on their station, now I'm learning how you do the meat station. So in this case, how you do systems thinking, how you do more artistic thinking, how do you be more of a shaman if you feel you're lacking that in your life, and the cards help you to get that curiosity, but like it's really to coax you to really start opening up with that person you feel comfortable with, and you know. And then over time, I think we find out how we fit, and even the cards could help us scaffold to like, okay, maybe we need a little bit of Satori D. Let's look at some of his cards to like, you know, to spark that round thought, or maybe we need more systems thinking. Let's get the Soul Sisters cards out because we need to do some more details on this, or whatever it is, you know, later. Yeah, I think that's where the cards become this scaffolding, this way to help each other expand our roles and be more transdisciplinary. Yeah, personally and together.
Gotcha. Cool. So how do we continue? Shall we all jump into the Figma Jamboard?
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, there's already tasks and things that we need to do. So in the real sense, I think the first task for me personally is to have my own creative mandala working on the NFT Redux and the mechanics of the creative one. But with that, I kind of told you, like, I know Jim tells me the math is this, but I think if everybody has the right intention and we're playing off of the same book, like the math is arbitrary, as long as those roles get fit and like people know, like, okay, maybe I'm not totally this role, but I want to learn this role, so I'm gonna hang out with this person to like figure out how they do those cards. Like how does Satori think that way? Because I'm just curious, how did he come up with that mandala? So then I go and hang out with Satori D, and that's basically what Jolly Llama did today. Like we just wanted to like talk more about everything we're sharing to get a clearer picture of where we were at and where we like intersect. And he gave me the more of the details on the mentorship part of this, which is I think key to helping with the onboarding as well.
So cool. Did others do the board? I'm trying to share, but probably I will be kicked out again when I try. Let me.
And then real quick, I don't know if anybody's used my part of the board, but I remember I got too much into it that I was getting into like how I do things, and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna puzzle this up because I don't want people to assume that this is the way to do it. And then I like broke it up, but I took like pictures of it so I know for my own self how my own mind works.
So
That's why I did it that way.
I'm back and I cannot share screen. But I was just looking at the Figma Jamboard, and it's beautiful. Even the cathedral and the bazaar are there.
Yeah, that was like my first like initiation of like thinking about the bazaar model all the time.
Does anyone want to share their screen showing the Figma Jamboard and maybe also experience this or yeah, like did anyone do? I haven't. I'm so sorry. I want to test it right away. I'm sharing the screen here. Sorry. I shared the Figma file URL in our chat.
Did anybody get a chance to look at like that weird rotating mind map that I shared? I'm really fascinated by that recently.
Can you actually go into it and we take
yeah. So the mind map.
Take around.
Yeah, I'll because I think it goes with the dynamics of the mandala like later on. But basically, what the guy did was mind map this book called Quantum Physics, Quantum Psychology by Robert Anton Wilson. And in the book, it has like a lot of different exercises. And so he was doing it to have like this book group. But he got like really into that mind map. And the way he did it is to simulate like the mechanics of like learning in a Taoist way, I guess. And so those are the mechanics that I was talking about, the 1, 3, and 5 being an important way that I believe he's basing it off of the I Ching mechanics. And so there's a whole wealth of information, and I shared one of the links that he gave. But to the point is that, so this is his way of helping people to look at their own progression of thinking in via this book and doing it collectively. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I like how that swirls. And then I kind of go, oh, this is the thing that I was looking for. And now I get what you said when you were saying that you're going to do mandala narratives. When he first said that to me, I was like, that sounds great, but I have no idea what you're talking about, man. That sounds great, but I don't know what a mandala narrative is. I'm like, I talk about the death of the narrative. And I was like, oh. And then when I saw his mind map, I'm like, oh, that's what you're talking about. It's talking about even, I'm thinking later these groups together write the paper, and it's not about one narrator, no one artist, one author. It's about the different mandala narratives that strengthen that lineage of progression of research and everything. So like when I was talking about reading what do you call it, decoding the what do you call it, the book of notebooks of Leonardo, and his progress was that he did all these things in parallel, but each one affected how he looked later. Like he was always updating his models based on other systems. Like, oh my God, I found out like, you know, these details about like how lungs go, and like, oh, I could apply that to like the mechanics of wind and all this kind of stuff. So for him, you know, it seems chaotic and messy, but that's because you don't know the context of his progression of using it. And I think in a lot of ways, you know, if we do this the way I think we all kind of feel we could do this, that we're doing that, but like being able to accurately like share that with somebody in a way that's like usable and important for, you know, it may not be exactly how you go about it, but it could give you
Mm-hmm.
those little insights to help you on the road, or even find the road, or whatever it is in your given journey in through the crypto flower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. And you're mentioning cards.
Yeah.
Do we see them there as well?
I would say some of like the one I think the one that I did like airs, and like some of the notebooks that like Curry did, and there's like drawings. Like I see those as like kind of potential cards. Um and I have an example from Team Human. They already did some cards that they use the book for their own like loose governance of like how they make decisions as Team Human. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's like a good example of what I'm saying. I wouldn't do the style that they do because I would want it to be more creative, but it
Mm-hmm.
shows the purpose. Like they already have like I think it's like 25 of these cards, but it shows us like an example. Like, okay, this is how they do it. We could use the same mechanics, at least just to start off with, to see how useful some of these insights are. But later, it's for us to modify it for our given task
Yeah.
in that point. But that's just like a a template to help us to get going.
Get started.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. So if I'm so what I'm seeing is, and also please everyone else chime in. I would and I'm just sharing like how I would go about to figuring out. So
Yeah.
what I understand is you have created basically like a maze, but
Yeah.
there are connections that you can follow, and I think that just brings your mind, tickles your mind more or less. And I'm
Yeah.
imagining, let's say I have this working group Omega, like my intentions, what I want to contribute, where areas where I want to grow by participating in Omega, and then also more concretely this consilience library. These would be the dimensions, and then really taking time to,
Mhm.
as you said, think about you know what balances me, or where am I centered, what are my disciplines, what station, or what station will you find me, maybe that putting that type of info there,
Mhm.
and then also sifting through any notes others left,
Yeah.
and also thinking about contributions. I think library is, because it's so tangible,
Yeah.
it is really a good first use case for us to test these out. But really just advertise more or less like, this is the thing I can contribute immediately, or this is
Mhm.
my general contributions. There are things where I want to grow, and I'm looking for others who might be further much further or much more experienced in those domains. Like, look for those stations and people and try to make connections.
Mhm.
And then through those connections, basically, we will see what are the viable paths for us to create towards
Yeah.
this T-Consilience library, right?
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Like, what are your thoughts, Letty? We heard that you resonated as well. Would you like to share? I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but
Yes, I was on the go, so I was looking for my mic button.
okay.
I'm a little bit late to this call, but I was listening to. It's like we are having this kind of maze connections in our Figma boards, and we are trying to connect everything together to have this kind of more structural way for more people or even ourselves make sense of all these things we're creating. So I guess we have this super beautiful poetic artistic framework, and let's keep exploring that, because that's our ethos right now. So yeah, at the same time we can make the connections as well. So we may be needing both things, but I like how things are going. So
Yeah. You know, I think another thing too that I want to emphasize is like with the disembodied poetics codex, like
Yeah.
the reason why I put codex there, I view it as like source code. Like it's just like these like rough drafts of like, this is like my archetype for the shaman. This is like my archetype for a systems thinker. And this is what I think about it. But at the same time, those comments become like ours. Like this is Omega. Like this is where the strand starts to branch off to where we collectively start to shape this insight to this archetype, or the insight to where we are at with ourselves, or where we feel we fit in Omega, or where we fit in our crypto journey, and where maybe we want to explore some of the petals, because I know some people already have ideas about like where they want to.
And that really makes sense, like what you're talking about the archetypes, because in each every one of us, I'm just going out from a library. I was in a library right now, so I was remembering Burr saying these things like libraries are like living places, living architectures and organic. So when you enter into a library, you can feel all this history. So you are immersed in this kind of archetypal knowledge. So I think those archetypes make connections with this kind of inner knowing that you are here, and you kind of interact with knowledge and with literature and with all these disciplines in a way. So those archetypes may be like a clue for people to say, well, I see myself in many, or in two or three. So those can connect to all these kind of unstructured maze we are doing. So I think that's like a help for us.
Super cool. And I have one more question. So sometimes I really don't know how my mind computes, but sometimes I get all hung up on analyzing. It's almost like analysis paralysis, and not at all this improv. I don't know. Sometimes it just works, and sometimes I just get hung up. Do you have, or maybe, you know, for people who are more used to have a more structured approach and
maybe what I could contribute
talking about.
here,
Yes, please go ahead.
if you get into this analysis thing, there is this thing in Lacan, and Zizek has a really nice talk about it. It's called the 4 discourses. There's like the master discourse, which tends to have knowledge, university discourse, which is kind of like legitimizing discourse. There's the hysteric discourse, which is always the artist of like why. Then there's the analyst discourse, which is kind of like this closest to the real, where it's very hard to symbolize things. So there's this kind of 4 positions which are constantly shifting in different forms of discourse. So I don't know if that helps. If you get too much in analysis, then it's.
You know, for me, I think there's definitely times where I'm. That's why one of the phrases is that, is this really what I want to do, or is this what I think I want to do? And there's like a big difference, because, you know, when we're talking about like the path with heart, it's very poetic, but there's the actual like felt experience where you have like this, like, I don't know why, but I just feel like I need to do this. And like another phrase is like the deja vu feeling. The best way I heard it explained is that you're exactly where you are and you're doing exactly what you need to be. Like it's like the accumulation of like everything you've been working for. Like, okay, my world makes sense right now because this is what I've been working towards. And then so you could think your way out of it. Where what I mean by that is like, sometimes where I have that feeling, but then there's sometimes where I talk myself out of that feeling. So yeah, I don't really believe that, blah, 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 and this and that. I'm going to do this. And then a lot of times I have this term where I say I'm banging my head against reality because I talk myself out of it. And then later I'm like, oh, I should have went with what I said I talked myself out of it. I don't know why, because I was thinking too much. And this is part of what Robert Anton Wilson's whole quantum psychology is about.
Mm-hmm.
Realizing what the use, like what the one phrase is, mind is a great student but horrible master.
Yes.
Yeah, and that just being aware of that, because it's very useful to think and to it gets everybody this far, but at a certain level you have to have like I go back to baseball. My dad like coached me in baseball, and you can't think about hitting. You got to you do all your practice and you do all your fundamentals so that when the game happens, you just react.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's part of it. To like, okay, I did all, like, even when you're taking a test, like you shouldn't cram like that, before it, because then you're like logging your brain. Like you should have the confidence to, like, what I was saying is like, if you let your brain, I forgot what the William S. Burroughs was, but if you leave some space, it'll quiet the mind. Your brain will answer the question or whatever, or something like that. I forgot the full phrase, but it's similar to that. That's where meditation, I think, comes in, and even where, like I said, there's practical tools, like learning from learning. One course that I took one time was that the whole thing about like walking in a circle instead of walking in like pacing back and forth, and just that physical act helps to like curve your thoughts in a sense. And that, like, if you be more aware of that you're like, oh, I feel like I'm stuck because I'm literally pasting. And that's why I kind of like put that about me like dancing, because like a lot of times I just need a dance and I'm not thinking. I'm like trying to stop my mind from thinking too much so I can have that like emergent like part. Like, oh, I think I see it. And then I go and then try to do something. Yeah.
Totally. And basically that about the baseball. That's also the inspiration behind this inner game of token engineering. And what I was thinking, Omega is about, and now you're bringing it up, is fantastic. So it's from a guy who wrote The Inner Game of Tennis, and that's basically exactly what it says, that like that once you are basically through all stations, more or less, right? Or once you see someone else hitting the ball with the tennis racket and so on, actually you can see and learn from that, and you can adapt. Like you don't have to analyze what are the next steps and so on and so forth. Where do I need to go from here? And that, when you think about it, might be hard to imagine how that applies to something like token engineering. But only if you only focus on the engineering heavy side, where it's more about complicated things, where you more or less need to know the tools and you need to have an engineering process and, of course, knowledge and training, practice. All of that is true. But once you have it and you're actually on the field and want to play, there a lot of things are happening at once. And you also realize how much of the opposite petals of the cryptoeconomics flower to the engineering heavy side, like all of the humanities, decision theory, ethics, philosophy, psychology, and so on, how much of those skills you would be needing. And also, actually, as a human being, you come equipped with those skills more or less, or you can learn them from others much more easily than from reading books, maybe. So that's kind of helping weave those threads together, actually, that we do have we do have actually, yes, of course, a lot of maybe studying that one can do, but also a lot of this, as you say, once you know your station, and you can actually learn many of the applied interpersonal skills, especially communication and so on, also from others who have experience in rather complex setting of token networks and token projects, or DAOs, we can call them that now. Yeah. Kind of, there is an apprentice aspect that is important.
And I think going to one point, like Jean brought up, is like really we're just retrieving these models that are like actually useful and good that we kind of conveniently forgot about.
Hey Seb, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, something that me and Satori were just teasing out before we were talking, and it's really been on the tip of my tongue lately. It's about it really touched on what you were just saying, and it's about the space in between that exists. And I've run into a pretty good experiment to run on everybody when everybody's ready to do it on their own or together. It's fun, but just to do a clap test right now, and to realize the lag between each of us, and then to also just bring your awareness to the idea that these people that you're with, you're not really with them in the sense that we've understood evolutionarily. So we're growing into this whole new sense of what that relationship might look like, protege or mentor, or that person that you're like, wow, I want to learn from them, but you're not on the court together. So there's a couple of ways that we can display this, and then you should have an aha moment where you're running into the same hole that probably everybody's running into, which is basically like there is this human aspect to it it now has a screen and two processors in between it. And that's a lot of already predetermined pathways to map out for us to travel through. And I'm telling you, while we're talking, like a second, I always have the trouble where I want to say something and I can't because somebody else is already talking. That doesn't happen in real life. When me and a crew of people get together, we're all talking over each other, and I don't mean in a rude way. I mean like we're jiving, we're playing, and we can't do that right here. So until we find creative ways, and I think the Imaginarium is a really creative way to touch on that space in between and to start to bring awareness to this idea that, hey, somebody, while you just put that up, that little picture, that led somebody to think infinitely many thoughts that they can never capture. And so unless you get together with somebody and in a confidential way share that, bounce that, that's a lot like what we all like to do if we have a ball in our hands. You can throw it at the backstop all day and get really good at that, but one day you're going to realize that you can't throw with somebody else. You're not good at catching the grounder. You don't know how to like swing at the pitch that's off the strike. So it sounds like you're really wanting to and touching on that, and I want to say I bet we're all right there with you.
Yeah, I want to like emphasize that point because
right on point.
Because I had an anecdote to this. I was in the Team Human Discord, and Jim was talking about bots, and everybody in the Team Human Discord was all about bots, and what is it supposed to be Team Human, and what about the humanity, and the bots are the problem with the world, and all this kind of stuff. And then I'm like sitting out there, and I know who Jim is, and I know that what Jim's saying is useful, and his heart's in the good place. But for the life of him, he can't accurately communicate that to the rest of the Team Human like community. And then I step in there, I'm like, well, what Jim is saying is like, I told everybody, we're already in a disembodied space. This is the way to help guide people so they could make connections. And then I briefly told him, I think the tech people have a good onboarding system, like a good start to it. And I tell Jim about it, and Jim's like, oh yeah, they're doing pretty good. To my point was, like, they were so concerned and then I kind of was telling Jolly Lava this too about like there's another one about like people being concerned about like certain things with blockchain and all this kind of stuff. And then one of my points was like, yeah, all those concerns are valid. We're already at scale. Like part of my one little hang up that my friend from Team Human had was like, I like what you're saying and I get what you're saying, but I really have concerns about tokens. I have really concerns about NFTs. And then what about if like someone like Facebook really does meta and they co-opt this concept and then real things could go bad? And I'm like, yeah, I know. I have the same concerns. But honestly, my best read of the landscape is this is probably the only way we stop that. And I'm like, this is why we need to like put in the human values baked in from the beginning. Yeah. Because that's, I think, the only elegant solution to the problem. Or at least one of them.
I just want to repeat it. Bake in human values from the beginning. That's basically the tagline.
But I mean, may I say something about this disembodied thing? I mean, I really feel that it's even more disembodied because it has been designed by software engineers, you know, and with this idea of system. And by listening from the beginning, I just felt that it's so hard for me to think this way and to articulate it this way without, and I felt very much disembodied in the thought by themselves, whether we are in the same space, physical space or not, you know, are already disembodied. And for example, I mean, when you were talking about mandalas, and we talked about it with Motion DAO some while ago, and I was really thinking that, you know, aesthetics, for example, and the aesthetics or the pattern of mandala, you know, when you recognize something, there's something, when you recognize something that you see and you understand it, then you feel it in your body. I mean, that's for me an example of embodiment, which is language. I mean, I don't know if I'm clear the way I talk, but I wanted to.
That's, to me anyway, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that space in between. And when you're trying to learn from people, which we're all trying to do right now, and then you put a screen in between each one of them, it's like, you know, imagine if we all had to walk through 10 gates just to say hello. That is what's happening. There's no choice when we are doing this thing over the internet of collaboration. So if we can just recognize that the
I'm
Beatles... I'm
going to talk over you right now. but that's the issue. That's the issue. We are all speaking English, and we meet, I don't know, somewhere in Germany, we will be all speaking English. And somehow we grown used to the idea that is a normal interface. It is not. I mean, language in itself is already a distorting interface. So I would not so much really, you know, just say, oh, this is a screen in between, that's why we don't understand. Like, that's not Putin's problem, for example. You know?
Wait. Say it again, because I'm definitely disagreeing here. What was that last part you said?
Yes, but I have full trust. And also we have, for example, I have also experienced this, that our brains are wired to actually overcome, you know, that other barrier that is now a screen. And also telling you from the other side, actually the screen, or having a screen and having some sort of, you know, how do you call it? We kind of have to wait each other's words out, and that puts in a bit of rhythm changer, and that actually helps other people to be part of the conversation who would totally lose out in, you know, being with 20 people in a room. You know, they would get not a single sentence out. As you have to, you know, you have to really consider those aspects, and I don't think and we can have that session once. Actually, Reina was here in the Omega sessions, and she comes from this design being, using really embodied practices to actually build connections and build feel connection through
Yeah, I kind of want
whatever
to
medium is available to us.
round out a
And
thought, because I know I'm using disembodied poetics, but what I fully mean by that is that if we realize that what Dalai Lama's emphasizing, that we're already in a disembodied space, right? So how can we be more embodied in that time lag of how we present ourselves and how we communicate when we have that channel to do it? And a lot of what I did in Imaginarium was like ways to culturally hack the tools that I have. That's why I edit the way I edit. That's not conducive to making going viral, but I would say that my video edits 3 years, 4 years later are more relevant than anything that went viral during that time. And because I was doing this as a way to understand things like that, my video edits over time are my best way to express myself. That is my art form, is video editing. That's how I have unity of thought. That's how I have unity of making sense. Before, I used to use words to process reality. That's what I learned from Jack Kerouac, that you could use writing as a way to process your reality. And that later, that stuff becomes like the source code for you. And when I was talking to my friend, he said, if we're going to do this work, it's not like writing, it's a lot like doing coding. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, for me personally, as more of an artist and more of a poet, I see some of those charts and I feel empty. But I know the usefulness, and then I'm like, okay, I could use that same tool, but I could be embodied in that space. For me, the structures that you guys find useful, or I'm just generally saying, I find useful too, but it doesn't fill me with energy. What fills me with energy is those images and that stuff that me and Curry did, and those video edits, because like all of that ties in to what I'm trying to say. Is like, yeah, I the reason why I'm putting this stuff together, or I feel so confident about talking about it, because this is accumulation of everything. I didn't even put this puzzle together until a few days ago, and I'm like, I wonder why I like that mandala so much. I'm like, oh, everything's making more sense to me. But that's for he does it, but I could see it being modified for myself. And that's the one of the intentions of it.
And I think that's the point. Yes, go ahead, Nick, please. Sorry.
So just to make sense of what we should be doing, or you're inviting us to do, then is to add to that area of Figma anything that we want, basically.
Yeah.
Anywhere we want.
Yeah, like I would say like the idea, like I have a couple of little stickers, and they're just ways to like entice you to like, oh, start here, or oh, what's this, and so like basically you should do it where look at the top and then just see whatever grabs your interest. Like you shouldn't necessarily start from where I say to start, but that could be a way for you to start and do your, because everybody has their own sticky notes, right? And all those sticky notes have some correlations to all the weird madness that I have in mind, and then just see where things where you find your own connections. And then I think those finding your own connections within the maze is where the start of us building these cards together.
Okay, so once people have added their just contributed content to the board, they should be, or they could connect it to other ideas already existing there, and this is our way of curating for the library. Is that what it is?
I think it's curating for the cards that help us to onboard and help us to curate, and then also to I think future figuring out how we organically or naturally break into groups, because I think we're already kind of like gravitating to people, and then I think even in the board you're going to see groupings of like, oh, we're interested in this, or we're interested in that, or you branch something from your own self, or like, well, Satori's really missing this book in there, or whatever it is, you know.
Okay, that makes
I think that would be like the energetic way to do that, to feel and that you are like jumping into an archetype, because your natural interest is to go to, oh, maybe it's more like this psychology stuff. So we are, Satori shared a lot of things about psychology as well. So we can think of that as like getting into your archetype, and then we are still have the other side that was more structured, and yes, we really thought about categories in the ontological way for the library, so we can still give both. And the game is like, well, I feel that I like doing this, and the other says, well, I'm a curator, so this is like more academic or more professional, and the game would be like, okay, I feel naturally inclined, and this is more connected to the energetic budget we have, because it's like something we feel drawn to do. It's not something we impose from the group to do. I see that as two different ways to go about decoration now.
So for people who like structure, then like they might look at this and be like, okay, that's a lot. It's a lot. Like there aren't, like what you just communicated to me as being like the steps to do, and like the steps to do to interact with this board, they're not clearly defined anywhere, so it might be overwhelming for people who are new.
But that's the, may I? So I think that's the thing, like, and that's also basically your feeling what it is that you need. Like if you say I need structure, right, then you will be drawn to the structured side of things, right? Or when you go through and it's like, oh, I thought I was needing structure, but actually this is kind of doing something to my synapses, and I want to explore. This is wonderful, right? So I don't think everything has a procedure to it, and most importantly, not all of us have to be on the same board or the same side of the board, or agree with all the different ways we can go about it. Like for me, I think this is the most important insight of this. Like this is like an invitation.
Okay,
and
that makes more
definitely
sense.
it will draw. Yeah, and I guess that's one side of also to see. Like definitely it's a playground. It's open. You can come in anytime. You can find your way. You can ask. And I think like if we would also have people who are, you know, getting the hang of it, and others are just interested, but it's like, I am interested, but I don't even know how to interact with this. I mean, some areas of this almost scare me because I don't get it at all, and others, you know, are interesting. You know, and that's how I would explore it, and just really play with it. And if you know, if you have any aha moments, you know, if something clicks, that's great, right? And if you then share that with the group, these are really insightful moments.
So what should we do then for people who have just joined? Like, for example, I see Alfred Deva is here. Do we just link them the Figma file, and then we're just like, okay, figure it out on your own, like see what calls to you, and then ask questions on the channel? I'm just trying to figure out like what to say to people who have just joined.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you'd be like, well, that's the Tori's side of the board. It's kind of crazy. Give some time, you could look at it, but this is how it normally flows. Now, after he dropped in when we had our weird Imaginarium, when I've been actually talking to him peer to peer about the group dynamics. And I think what's also important later is that, yeah, for people that are more systems thinking and have more structure, like they complement the shaman and they complement the artist. And that's what we're going to find over time, that like all of these pieces fit together and all of these pieces strengthen each other. And
Right,
so
but
that is, yeah. So
upon
it's
entry,
good
you
that
wouldn't
you
even
need,
know about those roles, right?
yeah, well, you kind of would if you're curious enough. Like all the clues are everywhere. They're in the disembodied poetics. They're I have more than overstated the different roles and even being complemented by other people in the sense of building upon the future roles. So that gives you the mechanics of like where you could put on a hat to be like, okay, maybe I feel like the artist today, so I'm going to reflect on images. Or maybe I feel like the systems person, and I'm like, well, let's put some order because he has some buckets. Like the buckets are full of ideas, so those should be like connected to the ideas. And I mixed that up because I started to make my system for myself when I was doing my board over time. And I was like, okay, this goes here. And I even made a good picture and I shared it with Soul Sister about like, this is how it actually works. And then I'm like, oh, I don't want everybody to assume like that's how it should be used just because like I feel like that works for me. And like that's not the point of this. But then I broke it up.
Yeah,
I
I understand what you're saying, that you're not forcing this on everyone. I'm more like trying to figure out like when someone joins Omega, right? You're saying, well, they should just be curious and look through like the chat basically and find this information. But that's quite costly, like energetically
I'm
to
saying
people,
about
right? Like for example, Jeannie doesn't fully understand what the library even is about, and sometimes when people join the calls, they kind of feel de-energized because of the way it goes. So like
I wouldn't say that like mine is the intro into Omega. Like no, that just
So-
the way you onboard people. But what I'm saying that is an option for people with different mindsets to be able to use this tool that's more suitable to them. Because for me, it's not energizing looking at the whole structure of the Figma board. I don't even have post-it notes in my thing.
But like
We are not
like I said, I understand that you're just creating more options and like so that people with more creative mindset will have somewhere to play as well. I totally get that. But how do we get them there in the
we
first
call
place?
it the playground? How about like don't fence it or don't put this box around it, leave it open please, but how about we have a play to the playground direction from the structured from the structured area of the board. If people come in and they're like, what is Omega? This is Omega onboarding. But then let's have a blinking, these Las Vegas direction, how do you call it? Showers. These arrows that show the direction. How about we have that saying playground, right? And people who are actually looking for it, they would be put if there was an instruction to the playground. That's what I'm saying. Like, why can the playground not just exist on the same board for people who won't have an issue at all?
I think
on the contrary, they will feel welcome because there is this playground and not the structured way of doing things, which they're used to coming into a working environment, right?
But You
I also
misunderstand what I'm trying to say at all. I'm not saying this is bad, that we have another thing. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm glad this exists. I'm just asking, how
Yeah,
do
you need a
we, when
guide.
people join Omega, how do they even get to the Figma file? And like, what happens when they get there? Like, should we have some sort of like information section where we say, okay, do you feel like playing? Go this way. And then do you feel like you need structure? Go this way. That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying like,
So,
how dare
You
you
need a
create
human.
this on
You
this
need a
file?
human. That's what you're trying to say. You need a human. You need a human there to say hi. And then all of a sudden, like, you make leaps and bounds. You cut right to the chase. You show them right where they're supposed to be, because you're not telling them where to be. You're letting them tell you, rather than have to go through the long click of a robot thing. It takes
Who's
time.
gonna be doing it?
I don't know. I'm
like
not.
But wait a second, Nick. You're making me feel insecure. But I thought you are working on this onboarding and asking people to be guides, so you're not the only one who can do this one-on-one session and so on,
one
right?
thing too, I'm
That's
picking
still
up
the
on.
plan.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, one thing I'm taking up to this point on my own is doing more better. I mean, like kind of tutorial videos. Meaning, there's parts of the section of like the working groups where there's like, you know, more detail oriented than my little creative stuff, and those edits would be helpful in to be like, oh, here's a playlist of like, you know, useful tips to how to navigate Omega, and that would be, you know, like the multi-sig wallet stuff and like the, you know, all the other stuff that I find not as energy. But I like, for me, I have to what I call clean the audio before I do a video edit. So I'm already doing the first step to do those more like tutorial videos. So it's not that big of a deal for me to do that, and I find the usefulness of that so that we have handy cards and also little video clips like, oh, this was us talking about the board. This is us talking about the multi-sig wallets. This is us talking about proposals, and like those practical little nuggets out of these working groups. But I'll also provide for us to use, and that's part of the cards later is to help self-sort people in that sense. So like, I think we'll have cards that are related to either just navigating the regular Figma board, but also to like probably fun interactions that of like me and Jolly Llama just talking about the craziness of the board, or me and Curry Hobo adding weird images and playing around. And so like, there's both aspects I think we could present in a lot easier and curated forms, and I'm currently doing some of that.
Yeah. And everyone basically is invited to there. And also, if you know, if you're interested but you don't quite dare, literally, I think Letty is thinking or resonating, Satori, Jolly, Lama, right? Steph, and others as well. I guess, like, you know, don't feel shy. Feel invited to explore.
Yeah, I'm actually
and the other
there now, so just adding some stuff of these discourses, and I don't know if it's helpful, but there's a nice article on curating, the subject of curating. So.
Oh, nice, cool. Yeah. I think even to curating, like in the sense of the board, is like we're cultivating certain things that we find interesting, and so like, you know, you keep on making your research more dank, so you could like expand it when you're ready to present, like, you know, your whatever project for the library. That's how I'm seeing it.
Cool. Okay, we're over time, just because some of us wanted to get together on other subjects. And I also would actually love to work it a bit more. With the creative part, and obviously, like, from what I'm understanding is also literally this is where this whole creative multimedia ideas and versions for the library or for the working group Omega will be curated these snippets and so on and so forth. That that's what I'm gathering basically. And then I think what also Nick, I don't know if that was also trying to make that point, but what we will also need to have for the work and the explanation of the work in the library and the progress, etc., and all these wallet actions and what have you, how do we distribute the funds, all of that needs to have an explanation. Also normal text, right? For people who come in and who want to quickly get an update on our progress, or who want to quickly find their way how they can contribute. That also goes without saying. And no, it doesn't go without saying. We definitely need that as well. And I think the point we're making is we need to not just host multiple worldviews, we also need to be able to host multitudes of working styles. If we don't want that everything looks like it has been just engineered following a blueprint, right? That's how we started the library idea, that we said, okay, it's actually quite easy to make this break down into tasks and just create. And we put down 2 weeks after we started. But we made the conscious choice back then to actually use the library as an experience to extend and explore really different ways of what that even means, the transdisciplinary art of token engineering. Like, how are so many people with so many backgrounds and perspectives, skills, can explore the complementarity of their contributions. With that, I would really love to thank you all. This is coming together in, I don't know, amazing, puzzling and amazing ways. So I look forward.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And just final thought, just remember what we were talking last week, this transdisciplinarity, these connections, like the dark matter is what is binding us. And what the invitation really is to explore that dynamic and not to be curious to say we have this structure and let's explore these dark things that are uniting us. And this can be expressed in a multitude of ways. This transmedia, we're trying to create this one aspect of it. So let's keep doing this kind of exploration into these new languages. And at the same time, we can curate something that makes sense for the exterior and for others to come here and to vibe with this.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I think what thought I wanted to really bring up, because it related, that I was reading about, the invisible economy and the data people, and they're talking about putting it in the background and letting the artists and all this kind of stuff. But for our context, I think we're making what we were saying, the dark matter, the visible economy, like, at least like putting it in the center, saying like, okay, like all this kind of stuff that we didn't really like put into the bucket is like maybe some stuff we should really start thinking about. And like really representing it in a way I'm starting to evaluate.
Gotcha.
Like, yeah, I think it's been my thoughts been evolving on this.
Super cool. Look forward to the ride with you all. Okay, and one more thing. It was clear for me at the earliest, like for Satori's call for participation of the systems thinker or the systematizer, come in and make a structure out of this if you want, if you feel inclined to. So if anyone, wants to play and, create things that can be put into, playful structures. That is also, I think, and yeah, one of those complementary skills that are needed. Super, super cool. Thanks a lot, everyone. And I'll have a lot of questions in the chat later.
Thanks so much, everybody. I will elaborate on this research groundwork thing to add it on funding working group funding proposal. Please take a look at it afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you all. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.